topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm Wendy Stewart, and if you tune in every week, most of you know that. I am broadcasting to you from New York City, where it is cold, and I think I hear hail on the windows, but Triversity Center is located in Milford, Pennsylvania. We are on Hartford Street, and we service the tri-state area, the rural areas in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So if you happen to be tuning in from around there and you want to stop in and see us, if you have something you might want to share with us or just come see our center, we are on Hartford Street in Milford, Pennsylvania. You can find out more about us on our Facebook page, which has got a lot of great things on it. And you can also sign up for our amazing newsletter, which one of our board members, Kit, does really great history of the LGBTQ community. So I want to welcome you to tonight's show. It's a very special show to me in many ways. This weekend, Triversity had their holiday party. And one of the things we offer at our center is we have a teen group. And our executive director, Taylor James, is the person who works with them. They all adore him. Taylor is like a teen himself. But more than that, it gives our kids a place to go, our LGBTQ kids, our kids who might be questioning. But what we offer is a safe space. And our teenagers came to our holiday party with their moms, which I thought was really wonderful. And I am so busy with my acting career. I don't have a lot of time to ever sit and talk to the moms of our teens or even watch the kids and what they do. And it was completely inspiring to me as a member of the Triversity board to see, what it is that we do. So tonight's show, our guest is somebody I've really wanted to have on for a long time. It's Jane Clementi from the Tyler Clementi Foundation. And I've titled our segment tonight, Putting an End to Bullying and Discrimination Once and for All. So please welcome Jane Clementi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Wendy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. And look, we're not out in the cold. Isn't this beautiful? It's a beautiful thing. So the Tyler Clementi Foundation has been around now 10 years. Am I correct?
Possibly slightly longer.
Slightly longer.
It's an interesting question as to the exact beginnings, because we came out of a very upsetting period in our lives.
Right.
The loss of my son, Tyler. So we didn't have necessarily a clear beginning. We actually applied for nonprofit status right after, in October of 2010. So that's 15 years. But then we didn't have the wherewithal to do much about that.
Well, I have to say, for not having the wherewithal, you have a wonderful website. It's, a lot of websites have a lot of information on them. Every page on your website is really about how people can take action. And here's something I want to bring up. I've spoken to some younger people since then that don't remember what happened. I remember distinctly what happened because that was a very pivotal time in our LGBTQ community for bullying, kids taking their own lives. And again, in Milford, Pennsylvania, we were so upset. We had a huge vigil. Now, we're a small town, but I think we represent a lot of small towns in a lot of places. And there had to be over 100 people at that vigil. And my daughter, who was not a public speaker, was so moved and so affected by Tyler. She got up, and I remember her words that day. At the podium, she said, if there is something that is causing this in you, tell someone. You've just got to tell someone. You must know someone, tell someone. That has become, it's a mantra in a lot of ways. We're now dealing with very different political times from them and a very different situation. What kinds of challenges have you encountered, if any, with your foundation now?
So we have seen some progress with communities that we've worked with, communities that have taken on some of our programs, and it's been positive progress. But unfortunately, you are right. There is a normalization of bullying behavior, aggressive, unwanted behavior happening right now. And we really want to continue to raise awareness, to find solutions. That was our whole purpose of starting the foundation. We wanted to start it to raise awareness around the issues that impacted Tyler's short life, and find solutions to them. And that's what I think we've done along the way, because we believe that everyone should be treated online and off dignity that everyone deserves, not despite their differences, but because our differences make us uniquely special and precious, just like Tyler was. We believe differences need to be celebrated. Yes. So
and I kept hoping we would come to a time where we wouldn't be using the word differences, right? Where like as we came out of that time period, Tyler was pivotal. I remember that whole time period. I remember the other kids. I remember our vigil, we had their faces on sticks blown up. These were people. You have to always put a face to it, right? So that you can reach other human beings, I found.
Absolutely.
And it felt as we moved past that time, people became aware. They understood what was wrong about bullying. What was going on online or in places of faith. No, none of it was okay. And yet it's like, I'm here having this conversation with you in 2025. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad your foundation exists. I love that you give all kinds of tools for people to use, but I say to myself, like, what is our plan going forward?
Yeah. Well, part of that is you hit the nail right on the head with what some of your comments, much of what's happening, this fear and rate rising of aggressive behavior is based on fear and lack of knowing someone, lack of knowledge, which is why one of the reasons what I think is we need to share stories. We need to normalize different experiences in life so that people understand and maybe can even connect with something. Many years ago, I was given a book from a friend, someone who became a friend, and it had lots of individual snippets of stories. And he had carefully dovetailed all the pages that he thought would be of interest to me. And interestingly enough, at the time, those stories, I mean, I know why he did it, because it was parents' stories, but I actually connected with a lot of the other stories that I was reading because they were dealing with shame and feeling broken. And at the time, this was 12 years ago, I was feeling very broken due to grief and felt a lot of shame also around the stigma, I suppose, of mental health and suicide, suicide ideation and suicide. And the fact that my son would rather harm himself than share what he was going through was very traumatic. And so I related to those people's stories. Their stories were nothing like Tyler's, but they were experiencing an emotion that I was also experiencing.
And things that you could grab onto, things that you could grab onto. You know, but you brought up the thing about mental health. And, we say, okay, suicide is drastic. There have been so many cases where in young people, and you'll know this to be true as well, it was just an impulse. They were so just miserable and hopeless at that moment that they took their own life. There have been many teens that attempted that, were rescued, and then realized, right? They got the chance to have the realization. But it was something that was a moment in time. And you have to wonder, I think about this a lot because it does fall into the mental health category, but can it get so bad for people that they just want to end it, you know?
Yes, I believe you are correct in that youth are probably more prone to having impulsive actions. But
Right.
I often share with audiences when I'm with them that having lived through my own profound grief and sadness and being in such a deep, dark, desperate moment, that often you can't find the resources that you have available to you. And you often can't even find the words to reach out for help. Which is why I find it so very important that if you are aware of something, just like what your daughter had said 12 years ago, if you are aware, you need, that's part of, part of that, our core is about being an upstander, and that's being an upstander. If you know someone's going to harm themselves or harm someone else, you need to share it with someone. It doesn't mean advertising it on social media or announcing it to the world, but it's about bringing in, especially if you're a youth, an adult, so that they can safely and get them the resources. And I've spoken before many people and some young adults that have boldly confided that, yes, they were at that point of despair.
Right.
And like one young woman, I remember her story clearly. She's like, she did confide in her best friend. And of course she said, don't tell it anyone. And at the time she was annoyed with her friend because her friend did tell her mom, who told the young woman's mom, and they got her the help. And, like a year and a half later, she was very grateful to her friend for having shared that she needed help. And we need to reach out. We need to share. But we have to know what we need to share and what we don't. So certainly somebody self-harming themselves or harming someone else, that needs to be shared.
Right. And it has to be shared with responsible parties. What I took from your website was interrupt, inform, and interact.
Right.
How do you get, especially teens, how do you get them to mobilize in that way?
Well, at first we have to share it with them, right? But one of the things that we saw in Tyler's situation was that there were so many people that had seen what was happening. And to our knowledge, no one spoke up to anyone. And that's why we became such champions of the idea of being an upstander, not remaining a passive bystander, but interacting and becoming an active upstander. And of course, I am not a very aggressive person or outgoing person, so I needed options. So that's why we came up with the different options. Plus, not every answer is right for every situation.
Absolutely.
Different situations need different actions. And so if you feel comfortable, intervene by interrupting the situation. Sometimes it's not even a confrontational interruption. It could just be coming beside the person being targeted and saying, hey, come with me, let's go to this place, or making a joke at the situation and diffusing the situation. And of course, sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes people become more aggressive and turn to physical violence, and you don't ever want that. You have to assess the situation for sure. And so it's really important, especially for youth, to report it to a trusted adult, or in say workplace situation, report it to a supervisor, report it to someone. And interacting, I always felt like if someone had at least reached out to Tyler, because to our knowledge, no one has come forward to say, oh, I talked with him about this or anything.
And I was going to ask you that. Right now, nobody has come forward and said anything at all these years.
Well, I mean, I met people that had known Tyler
Right.
At Rutgers, and that's been an encouragement to me. But
Right.
no one came forward, to our knowledge, to him to say, that's just a ridiculous, let's report it. And actually, Tyler did report the situation. And the situation was that his roommate
Had
activated
videotaped
a camera. No videotape. He activated a camera on his laptop camera to show Tyler having sex with another man. And then
but that alone, we're talking Rutgers University. We're talking, we're talking about the Northeast. Forgive me if I'm stereotyping it, but
it was also 15 years ago.
Right.
And even the technology was cutting edge. Like, we didn't do FaceTimes. We didn't do these Zoom calls live, programming it out to Facebook. So I don't think Tyler understood that someone could activate a camera remotely and turn it on a Twitter feed. That was something very unique.
And that is just, I remember that. I remember the situation that is so still, will always be completely bizarre. The person, we're talking about mental illness. Anyone that would do that to someone else, that is mental illness. That is like lack of accountability, a lack of compassion, and a lack of empathy, really.
And maturity. All tied up in one. And also the fact that sometimes it's hurt people that hurt other people. So it's somebody that has been at the brunt of, or the recipient of, aggressive behavior. And that's almost like it's a norm. Like, that's why it's almost becoming a normative behavior today, because we're seeing it on our screens, on our newscasts, on our social media posts. And we've got to re-educate and retrain people to realize that words have great impact and have consequences, and we need to build people up. And if it's not building someone up, then we shouldn't maybe post it or reach out with that Twitter comment. So it's really important to think twice about that.
Have your programs been implicated in schools that you've spoken in?
Yes, some of we have different programs for different.
I saw that you offer a lot of different programs. Maybe you could take us through some of them, because they're great.
So yes, so we definitely go out and speak at schools. And oftentimes when we do that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to implement our upstander pledge, get more people aware that about what being an upstander is. Not only is it interrupting bullying, aggressive behavior, but it's also, it's more than just two youths on the playground or in the classroom right now that are creating aggressive behaviors. It's from policies and legislation that is marginalizing one group of people. Specifically, I think of the trans community right now. That's really targeted horribly. And so being an upstander, it's about raising awareness around the situation or an issue, and trying to change that by raising that awareness. But we also have some other really beautiful things that have happened over the years, because our whole thing is about sharing stories to show how quickly somebody could spiral out of control with a mental health crisis, into a mental health crisis, as well as sharing stories to humanize people with different, because of differences. Tyler's story is because he was targeted because of his sexual orientation. So it's about sharing that with many people. But one of the other great ways to share stories, I think, is through music. And we've been really gifted through a beautiful piece of music that was commissioned by the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus and 6 other gala choruses. New York City Gay Men's Chorus was one of the 6.
Right. It was somebody from the Gay Men's Chorus and composed a whole thing. That's amazing.
No, it was Stephen Schwartz who organized the League from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, and Stephen got 9 of his 10 other composers to help him. So it's 9 movements. It's a different composer for each movement. There was one librettist for 8 of the movements and another librettist for the final movement that was added. And it shares different layers of Tyler's life. And I just love that, because we're all lots of layers, you know, and
Yeah.
we don't share every part of ourselves with everyone, but it's important to be more open and transparent for sure. And the different layers in Tyler's suite are not only about Tyler, but it's about the relationship with different people in his family. So there's a brother's song, there's a father's song, there's a mother's song, and the reaction on after the fact of the loss. And I love that because it's like a special gem, you know.
It's really incredible because this is a piece of art that is out there that can certainly, we were talking earlier about how do you reach people, because I really don't know the answer to that. I'm living in a time now where there's not a day that goes by where I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading this, right? When you have a beautiful suite that's been composed with Tyler's name and the layers of his life, so that something like that exists and you play that for people, I really think it gets them in their heart where it needs to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even think it's even deeper. I always say like it's, you know, statistics and research speaks to like somebody's head and mind.
Right, exactly.
And stories might tug at your heart, but music just reaches into your soul, into your being.
Absolutely.
And just, you can't deny, you know, hearing that and being changed. Hopefully you would be changed. And we also have partnerships with other organizations or companies even to help us share Tyler's story. So just in September, there's an app called, or a game that's on the app that you can buy for your phone, like on the App Store, Google Play. And it's called Before I Come In. Ambrose Studios created it, and they had their own game of coming out. And then they are adding stories, and Tyler's story was the first story that they've added. So his story is in there, and it's all about being an upstander. So it's a game. So it's not exactly Tyler's story. It was the premise of being a freshman at Rutgers. And if you encountered upstanders along the way, so you kind of win the game or that chapter, if you or elicit the upstander behaviors, and Tyler receives the upstander behaviors.
Exactly.
And that changes the story outcome, because that would mean Tyler would survive and be here with us.
These are incredible creative ways of being able to reach people. You know, you've mentioned a number of times storytelling, right? It's something you're starting to hear more and more about. I think now more than ever, we are at a time where we need to have these ways to communicate, because the words that are out there, the AI that is out there, to me, it's so cold, it's so not caring, and it's got nothing to do with loving a person. It's got to do with all this other stuff. When you tell a story, it's like your friend who dog-eared those pages in that book for you, so you could, it wasn't the exact story, but people that had experienced similar emotions. That's connecting on an emotional level.
Yeah, he tried, but I didn't really connect with those people. I connected with other people in the book, but that's okay. I mean, at least
okay.
Kindness. And we also, another really great thing that happened 2 years ago in 2024 is that Tyler's violin was put on display at the New York Historic.
Historic Society.
Yeah, they dropped Society in the last year or so, but it's called New York Historic. And so that's a great way to start conversations. And he has a little video, they have a video of him playing the violin, because he was an accomplished violinist. People don't know who Tyler was. All they know is the headline of someone being targeted in a cyberbullying incident.
And I got to hear that video because you're talking about that big LGBTQ exhibit that they had there at the New York Historical in the city.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they put it on display in 2024 without anything. And then just this August, they moved it upstairs to the second floor. It's on the second floor. I don't know that when I went to see it, it wasn't with all other LGBT, but they're opening up a whole new wing.
They're doing the whole wing there. Well,
And
that's
which is
really
amazing.
important because you get such a cross section of people that'll come through there, and that's what's important. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to touch and reach people that way, which is what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you mentioned that Tyler was an accomplished violinist,
Yeah.
a
Music is
very,
very important to him.
yeah, very sensitive person. How
Which
did
is why the suite is so important,
right?
because it is music, and he was very passionate about music.
Passionate about music. How did you get the resources within yourself to form the foundation? How did you mobilize yourself?
Well, to be truthful, I don't think I did at the time, because I think that came from the external forces and from all the media attention. When I said Tyler's name, held captive the headlines.
Yeah.
Because of that, we had a tremendous outreach to us. It was not something that I had looked to do. I'm not one to stand up and get attention on myself. I enjoyed a very nice private life, as Tyler did and the rest of our family. But because of the headlines and because of all the stories, it just enveloped and are all around us, and we just moved forward with it step by step. And thanks to many great people coming around us, it has been very, very helpful. I participated in someone's writing of a book, as she was doing research, and it was specifically focused on people who had been affected by grief and had turned their grief into activism.
Right.
And she coined the term accidental activist, or what was the other? Bereaved activist.
Right.
And I totally agree with that. It just comes around you. And her thought, which I also embrace, but it wasn't mine, but it is hers, is that many people will say grief is the inability of your love to go anywhere. Like, you have this love and you can't share it with anyone. It's there's no place to give it because that person is not there any longer. But activism provides a space or a place for that love to go. You put that love into your activism, and then you can move forward. It gives you a passion in life. It gives you a purpose. And
I also feel, though, it brings the person alive again. Every time you do an act that's a positive act and you have Tyler's name in it, that's his name being said again. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that we deal with grief well in this country as a culture. It's a sore spot with me. I lost my husband 2 years ago, and I remember that night I gave a party for him at Julius Bar, the oldest gay bar in the city, with all my friends, because I needed to have community around me. And when I reached past that night and I was looking for an in-person support group, because I thought it would be good to talk with other people that had lost a partner or lost someone that was the most important person to them, that would really help me. And Jane, all I could find was online groups, and it really made me angry to this day. I surrounded myself with a great group of girlfriends that I randomly met that had experienced loss, and some guys. And so essentially I formed my own group, but I should not have had to do that, right? These resources, we should be addressing grief a lot more in our culture than we are. I mean, mothers lose children. Is it suffice to say that we can join a Zoom group and that's going to be okay? What happened to being in the room with somebody and being able to reach out and touch someone else, or crying with other human beings? I really feel we've lost a lot of that.
Yeah. That's true. But the thing is, too, is that not everybody responds to the same sources of help. So people were surrounded me, but I was at the time, I also needed to move on to find new friends also. Because their life continued. In my head, their life was continuing as if nothing had happened, which is normal. I mean, now I've had friends and people in my life that have experienced loss, and my life does continue. But my life had stopped, and it was such a chasm that I just couldn't really connect to many of the people that had been in my life. I reconnected and connected with new people. It was like I had before 2010 and an after 2010.
No, I totally understand it.
I just was in such a profound grief that I didn't want to be surrounded by other people who were in grief. So I was fortunate. I had good mental health counseling. I had a great counselor who came beside me, and I still visit her every once in a while, not as regularly as I did at the time, but I still meet with her. And definitely am a proponent of mental health support with talk therapy, but also sometimes it's just you need one person. That's one of the things research says, that one person can make a difference in a person's life. And you need to find that one person to talk to share, so that you can be able to express yourself and not feel judged or not feel as if what you're experiencing is not the norm. You don't want to be that one person. And chances are you're not, because I do believe everything is a spectrum. It's not all black or all white. It's always in the gray, I believe. And that really helps. But one of the things you had said before about the times being very rising, the incidence of bullying rising, I do want to also point out that because of the increased attention, there have been more supportive legislation happening. I know there's a lot of negative legislation out there, but I do like to raise the awareness that there are legislators who are trying to make positive changes in legislation. One being that there is a bill in Congress. It gets getting introduced every year since 2011 when Senator Lautenberg introduced it, and that's the Tyler Clementi Higher Education Anti-Harassment Act, which is based on granting colleges and universities added bonuses if they create plans for anti-harassment policies on campus. And it's been reintroduced every Congress. Just reintroduced in September. I think it was the 8th time in September, and it doesn't seem to be getting bipartisan support. It's obviously just supported by one party.
Right.
And I was at a meeting many years ago in DC, pre-COVID, and one of the people at the meeting, the legislative aides, had said, well, if you take away the protected classes, the bill would get passed. And I'm like, yeah, but if you take away the protected classes, then you're not going to protect people like Tyler, who's part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
So, so there's that, but there's also other positive bills. And because we've been able to sign on to bills to endorse it, because all bills get endorsed by community organizations. And there's a new bill that Tammy Baldwin, who is also one of the co-sponsors of the Tyler's bill, she just promoted a piece of legislation called, what was it called? It's 988 Lifeline. Kind of, it's LGBT 988 LGBTQ plus Youth Access Act. It hasn't gone very far, but she does have bipartisan support. She in the House, she has 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans who introduced
supporting the bill. Yeah,
supporting the bill. And in the Senate, she introduced it with a Republican from Arkansas. So it is getting some support. We need to make sure that it gets more support.
Of course,
so much is happening that these things.
Well, that's the thing.
It's lost in the messaging.
If you didn't mention those bills, yeah. I had no idea about them. I did read about the Tyler Clementi one when I was doing the research, but most of us are not even aware of these bills.
And many legislators are aware of the harms in the the digital world. So
Right.
there have been several introduced and that don't advance as well, because there's also big lobbying again, from the social media and digital world,
Right.
pushing back. But there's kids off social media. There's Kids Online Safety Act. Currently, both of those are being presented, as well as the Safer Youth Act, which is a simple act of adding a question onto a pediatric screening question about whether there are firearms in a home. So that as you're doing a mental health analysis, you get the full picture. So whether there's means to back up the actions, or it's really important.
That's a good one. I never thought about that. And with those school shooters, it's become common. It's a simple question, but to get something like that passed, how many levels? How easy is any of this? That's my question.
It's not very easy, hence why these have not been passed yet.
Right.
And again, because there's so much nonsense happening within the government, which is serious things. I'm not saying that immigration is not serious, but our youth is a serious thing, and health coverage is a serious issue, and mental health should be part of that.
I agree.
Coverage, and it shouldn't be so expensive in this country.
Well, that is right. Exactly. A whole other topic. And you and I both know it doesn't have to be. I always say, the money is out there. It's just being channeled away right now from middle class and working class people. But we have to have accountability. All of this tells me, as human beings, we need to have some kind of accountability in this country for our youth and for each other. And we just can't say, well, if it doesn't fall into our political likeness, that we just completely reject it, because it's not what we personally believe in. And there is too much of that right now. I mean, you said it, the attack on the transgender community, really, for what point? What is the point? Why do that?
Right.
It's actually vindictive and cruel as far as I'm concerned. And, I always feel very lucky being in the tri-state area. I feel we have a lot of support here. You can always say, oh, we could use more of this or more of that. But in general, there are a lot of options for people and to make them feel safe. Whereas other parts of the country, it's just not that way. Now, I'm curious, when you've done speaking engagements, what have you encountered going to other places that, are not New York or LA area, like in between?
Interestingly, I believe there are pockets of safe spaces all over where I've been. And usually people that would call me in are those safe places. Like just this May, Tyler Sweet was sung in Tampa Bay. It was sung in Jacksonville and Tampa.
Wow.
And so we had a very supportive pocket, right? And then from there, I went and spoke at Venice Pride, which was at Venice Beach, which is just down the road an hour.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. Know all the locations you're talking about. Yeah.
And so those are that, there are pockets, but of course you see what the legislators are doing from some of these states, including Florida. They're not safe places for members of the LGBTQ.
They're not,
community.
But when somebody like you shows up and you speak, or you're part of Venice Pride, all those people there that that we represent, it makes them understand that they've got allies out there, and that is really important. Especially, I have a lot of friends up here that are like, oh my God, I'll never go to Florida again, or so-and-so moved to Florida or whatever. People have their own reasons for doing things. There's a huge LGBTQ community in Wilton Manors in Florida. I know a lot of people down there. Of course.
A long time ago, I was there to
Right.
speak.
So you know what it's like. And I think of all the people I know that are probably feeling, and I know they are, attacked, isolated, or whatever. But, when somebody like you comes and speaks and partakes in a pride or something like that, it reminds the people that are living there, hey, you know what? We've got allies all over. That's really important. When we talk about mental health, we all as human beings want to be supported. For me to be able to function and be an activist or an advocate, I need to know that people have my back, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This is what we can do for everybody else.
Yeah, and we definitely need to take care of our own mental health.
Thank you.
Especially in this time when we're seeing so many negative messages on our news feed and on the news that we're watching, reading in the newspaper.
Nuts.
So
people call me and they're like, "Did you see this? Did you see that?" I'm like, "It popped up on my phone. I just read the headline. I'm not dealing with it because I have to get up every day." And my nature is to try and make something positive happen. I'm a member of the Imperial Court. I have all these organizations I work with. And if I can do one thing a day to affect somebody's life in a positive way, that I can control. I cannot control crazy. And
Right.
It is really crazy. I think what bothers me about now is the people that won't call it crazy. If they would just turn around and say, I made a mistake. I made a mistake, and I want to right the wrong. And I'm not telling them that they have to buy my politics, but stop the cruelty. All right. Stop the cruelty. Stop the attacks. Call a liar when they're lying, speak the truth.
Yeah. And we all need to have a mental health strategy because we all need to refocus and rethink, reprogram ourselves to calm down and get into a better space, like whether that's through music or physical activity is excellent because that helps regulate the body in many ways, and including your mental health, as well as maybe journaling, but you have to get what's out inside of you, whatever is triggering your emotions, whether that's stress or the emotion of frustration or anger. We need to learn to channel it out into and refocus. So maybe even internal meditative devices, prayer.
Great strategies.
We need to learn that, but we also can't just push it down and suppress the anger or the issues that are impacting the anger. We need to get them out. So really finding someone to talk to, finding that special person that you can share those messages with is really important, because oftentimes if you just suppress it, they'll resurface and they will definitely either harm you or you will harm someone else as they explode out of you. So we definitely need to, channel our energy a little bit, plus also have time for fun. We have positive emotions within us too, right? We have joy, we have excitement, we have
I agree with everything you're saying. That is the life I totally live. And I'm the first one to say someone will hit me with something horrific and I'm like, I can't do anything about that, but there are other things I can affect. And I try and make the day, you can have a day where everything goes wrong. At the end of those days, Jane, I have wonderful animals. I've got 2 rabbits, a cockatoo, and a chihuahua. I have it here. 2 rabbits, a cockatoo, and a chihuahua, and nobody's kept in a cage. They're all litter trained, and they all have their own personalities. And even though they're eating my couch and my moldings, I don't notice that because, pets are very non-judgmental. I live in New York City. I have to come home. Sometimes it can be very stressful here, even just navigating the city. And, you've brought up mental health a number of times. There's so many situations here where people really need mental health resources. And you and I both, they're not getting them,
Right. And we do have 2 new initiatives that we're going to be unveiling within the next few months. One is a new mobile AI powered app that we are just in the final stages, and then we have a prototype, and we're going to test it out with we have about 50 people or so that are going to try it out and test it out, and then it'll be available in the App Store as well. And we also have a new kindness initiative, because
I love that.
we want to be able to teach our youth how to use their use their skills so that they know what kindness is. So it will be a teacher resource, teacher-led resource that's standards-based, so it'll be appropriate for each grade level. We're starting with 3rd grade, and it'll be designed to build skills of emotional intelligence and active listening and the capacity to act in difficult moments. So all part of being an upstander, it all kind of
right. It all falls under the upstander title. Now, have you had in the New Jersey, New York area, have you had success with some of the programs that currently exist with them being brought into curriculum?
The Upstander Pledge and the Day One Initiative. Yes, we've had some positive responses. We did a survey a couple of years ago. I guess it's time to do another one to see that there was change in the behaviors of the students after they've implemented Day One in their school, which is really great. Which is also that was a research-based initiative where from the first day that a group meets together, it will state the boundaries, like this is not acceptable behavior here. We will not target someone because of their difference, whether it's their ability, their sexual orientation, their body shape and size, their emotional gifts. Some people, get targeted because they're super smart in the classroom.
Right. And then they're attacked for it. They're victimized.
Right. Or if they have emotional difficulties in the, where they're on the spectrum, they get targeted also. That's another huge reasons why somebody is targeted in a classroom. So we set the boundaries, we make it clear, and then of course it doesn't mean it's a magic wand, right? It doesn't happen, but at least you can call it out and say, wait a minute, that's something we said that, back on the first day of class or the first day of the month, we said we're not going to do that. Remember that? And youth need to be, reminded and help to change their behavior, because behavior that's not changed doesn't magically disappear at 18.
No, absolutely not.
Into adulthood, and we see that with Tyler's aggressor was 18. Tyler and he were both 18. So and we see our legislators now, people in office that we're seeing on the screens using aggressive behavior are much older than 18. Horribly
aggressive behavior. Actually, behavior like I can't even remember like this growing up. There used to be, even if someone, what did they call it? A sheep and whose clothing? Oh, wolf's clothing,
wolf's
right?
Clothing, right, yeah.
Right. If people were cooler about it. Now it's just like blatant. And now an example has been set to empower people, that it's okay to do that. You're showing your power, and it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. But I look at what you're doing and the programs that you put together, and you know what? It's all positive, and it's going to affect things in a positive way. I did want to ask you, because we're like in our final countdown. What do I have? 3 minutes. Juan gets the hook on me. I have have clergy been receptive to what you are proposing in terms of acceptance in the LGBTQ community?
There has been movement since 2010, definitely in faith communities.
Great.
But still a lot of pushback in certain communities, but we did have 2 initiatives on our True Faith Doesn't Bully. A few years back, we wrote letters of affirmation to members of clergy of the Southern Baptist Conference. And
wow.
Most of it is that we have, and all of the letters live on our website, and we put them up on the website because we wanted to share people's stories. I think there's 28 or 30 letters, and they're from people some people are from clergy, some parents, some people that had been targeted, and some people have changed their thoughts on and their faiths on inclusion of LGBTQ. Most had a transitional point in time,
but
and
that's amazing success. That's really
that's good. And we wanted parents and people to be able to see that even if we didn't get much change within the Southern Baptist Conference, but we did get these letters out, and we are able to see. We also had an initiative with Father James Martin with the Roman Catholic letters it was a support for LGBT. No, LGB. We couldn't even use the T because we didn't think it would get any traction at all. Where bishops signed on to the.
I love it. Well, it's our time. I can't believe it. This went like so quick. Thank you for everyone that tunes in tonight. I always take a parting shot. So look at me. I love doing these. Jane, thank you. You've been a terrific guest, and I hope to see you at Imperial Court events like I always do.
Not this month, but next month I will be back.
Fabulous. You take care of yourself. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, and good night.
Bye.